to near mere existence in recent news in college football's big moves leaves people in awe of college athletic departments adding to bank accounts. It starts with the Big 12 Conference. They founded back in February of 1995. It was formed when the old Southwest, the teams from Texas, dissolved and moved in with the Big 8, which were northern teams such as Nebraska. The teams involved currently in the Big 12 Conference in the North Division: Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Missouri, Nebraska. All have been prior involved with the Big 8. The acquisitions, Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Texas A&M, Texas Tech, changed when they formed the Big 12. When they expanded, they became instantly one of the biggest powers in college football, arguably with the SEC out east. Some of the biggest rivalries in Texas and Oklahoma have the Red River rivalry that's played every year. Same with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, your two in-state rivals. Nebraska and Colorado play every day before Thanksgiving, or on Thanksgiving weekend. In Texas and Texas A&M have the bonfire, which some people might remember. There were many deaths a few years ago when the bonfire before the game it collapsed and killed a bunch of students. Just recently, the Big 12 Conference went under a major facelift when the Big 10 announced a few months ago they wanted to expand and add more teams. Some of the teams that were mentioned were Nebraska and Missouri, two teams out of the Big 12. Nebraska ended up taking that offer 2 weeks ago. They took an invite from the Big 10, and they accepted it. It makes sense. Nebraska is a school that they feel they better fit the Big 10 with the academic standards and with the way that the sports and in the classroom, the way they excel. Money is obviously a big driver of this. The Big 10 has its own television network called the Big 10 Network. There's $14 million a year given out to schools in the Big 10 just for that kind of revenue. The impact on the conference, was huge. Nebraska is the most productive team in the Big 12 North. The Big 12 is pretty much dominated by the Big 12 South. The impact on Nebraska is that this team automatically, turns into a huge national contender going to the Big 10, where the Big 10 is typically a little bit weaker of a conference, arguably not as much speed, or skill, and size in the Big 10 as there is in the Big 12. But there's more money, and Nebraska has much more opportunity to excel in the Big 10. With this happening, the Pac-10 then announced that it would like to expand and also took Colorado from the Big 12. So within 1 week, the Big 12 went from 12 teams to 8 teams, losing Colorado to the Pac-10 and Nebraska to the Big 12. The impact on the Big 10 that it made with Nebraska's arrival is that Nebraska, national power, top 10 ranking year in, year out, so they instantly gain more viewers, and they'll get more money in following years when if or when Nebraska makes it to BCS bowls. There's more money involved. Now with this happening, BB, the commissioner of the Big 12, panicked a little bit and wanted to save his conference. There was news that the Big 12 was going to dissolve now. The remaining 10 teams are going to head out to the SEC or the Pac-10 and join those conferences, and there will be 4 major power conferences. Well, this all kind of hung around on Texas's head. If Texas made a decision to keep the Big 10 and keep the 10 remaining teams of the Big 12, that the other teams are going to end up staying because Texas is the moneymaker for the Big 12. BB made a pitch to Texas, gave them more money, millions more, $12 million more, and offered them the opportunity to have the Texas network, their own network, their TV network, for just Texas sporting events. So now you look at the change. Texas accepts the offer. They stay in the Big 12. So the 10 remaining teams of the Big 12 all of a sudden go from near dissolvement to now they're staying. So it's just a 10-team conference, and with Texas pretty much being the running of it. The remaining teams now in the Big 12 conference are Iowa State, Kansas State, and Missouri. Those 4 teams are in the North. And the South stays the same with their 6, with Baylor, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. The pros of this, obviously, like I mentioned before, for the Big Ten are they gain another team, they gain much more viewership, they gain a lot more fan base follows them. More money brought into the conference. Arguably now one of the, if not the most powerful conference, definitely the second most powerful conference behind the SEC, and in front of the old Big 12, and now 10-team Big 12. The cons are you're going to lose all these rivalry games. You're not going to have the Texas-Colorado game, or the Nebraska-Colorado game. You're not going to have the Nebraska game. You're not going to have the Colorado-Missouri game. You're going to lose a lot of games, and you typically get a lot of followers. It takes time to build up rivalries and tradition like that. Arguably now people in the Big 12 now say they're happy that Nebraska and Colorado are gone, because now they have more teams in the southern side of it. There's not going to be as much travel up north, and not have to worry about those cold weather games. Basically, the conclusion, all this wrapping up is that time will tell, whether it works out, whether in a couple years we see the Big 12 totally dissolve, whether Nebraska can, make it in the Big 10, where, it's thought that they'll be able to succeed very well, but nobody knows until you actually go through the time. With all this set up, the nation awaits for a possible playoff in the future if we can get these 4 big conferences. So time will tell how this ends.